Before I begin the interview, I'd like to quickly say that my first feature-length horror film, The Philip Experiment, or How to Conjure an Imaginary Ghost, is funding right now on Kickstarter. In 1972, the Toronto Society for Psychical Research had a question. What would happen if you tried to summon the ghost of someone who never existed? Let's find out together. Go to thefilipexperiment.com to learn more and support the movie. That's thefilipexperiment.com with one L. Now, on with the interview.
Welcome back, pod people. My guest today is J.C. Doler, the writer-director of The Fetch, an upcoming independent horror film that fits into this genre I've been noticing more and more often, where I like to call it the real monster is trauma, with probably the most famous recent example being The Babadook, also It Follows, and if you go back in time far enough, The Shining. So the first thing that occurred to me when watching this, JC, is that this seems like a very personal movie in the sense that the POV very closely follows our lead character, Nicholas. Was it also a personal film in the sense of being inspired by a personal trauma of yours?
So initially, it was kind of inspired by the fear of loss and the fear of it was inspired by depression mostly, which is something that I've personally dealt with, something my wife has dealt with. And then we thought, how could we turn this into something that is scary? And so we really kind of tried to avoid our personal lives, but but we also spoke to a lot of friends, and we kind of it's an amalgamation of friends' personal experiences and our own pushed into one.
Okay. Yeah. Was making it cathartic, or?
I would say yes, it was. Yes, it was cathartic, but it wasn't. I don't want to say that we were, suffering through something major and then we made it. We tried to make sure that the trauma that the characters go through felt real and relatable, because we didn't want it to feel fake. We didn't want it to come from a place that we didn't experience, because then it wouldn't feel genuine. But so it was cathartic in the sense that we were excited to just be making this film finally, because it had a really long journey to the screen. But also knowing that we were telling something that was based off of real experiences, and it was real emotions and a real story that we could all relate to.
All right. Yeah. So talking about it being believable, and like I said, personal in the sense that we very closely follow the main character, Nicholas. I think that the lead actor, Logan Donovan, does a great job. Really sort of is the heart of the film and carries it, not in the sense that the rest of the film is bad, but in the sense that like, if he had given a bad performance, the film wouldn't have worked. But he gave a very good performance, so the film does work. So can you talk a bit about like, how did you cast that role, and what was it like directing Logan?
Yeah, so initially, our film, The Fetch, is based off of a short film we did called Hangman, which we released back in 2016.
Is that available to watch anywhere?
It is available online. It's available for free on my website, on Vimeo, and on Screenbox right now.
Excellent.
Yeah.
What's your website?
It's aisle7post.com.
Okay. And sorry, I wanted to make sure that was available both for me and for anyone listening. But please do continue. So this was based on your short film.
Yes, we did a short film in 2016 called Hangman, and it's, once you watch the short, you'll see it's a very, very similar concept, just much more broadened and much more much more of a budget. But we initially had cast our lead actor, Chris Allen Evans, to be the role of Nicholas in the short, and he was originally going to play Nicholas in the feature. But when we started getting some traction on the film, we got a little bit more money, and Chris is a great actor, but he's not a big enough of a name, or he at least hadn't had enough experience. And so we had to start putting our net out wider. And our producer, Alexander Jeffrey, had worked with Logan, or at least had went to school with him, acting school and stunt school with him. And so he
All right.
and so he recommended Logan, who was a working actor in LA, still is, and he's done a ton of shows. He's a professional working actor, and we met up with him, and immediately I knew he was Nicholas. He just could emote in the way that I needed him to. He was just a deeply connected person to those around him. He had a lot of emotional depth, and I could tell that he was going to be our Nicholas. And he was attached, I want to say, in 2019. And so for 3 years, he was attached before we started shooting.
Excellent. So, talk a bit about the process of working one-on-one with an actor like that and getting this sort of really emotionally troubled performance out of him.
Yeah. So, our character Nicholas has a child who dies in the film. Spoilers, sorry. And he has a wife who's doesn't know how to handle the situation because their son is dead, and then Nicholas tries to kill himself, and so there's a lot of emotions there. And Logan hadn't gone through any of that. Not a lot of people have gone through that, which is very traumatic. And so we spent a lot of time working on the script together, bringing and letting him read it, give his feedback, because we wanted his perspective on how he would react to things. And then he started meeting up with a therapist, also who was also an acting coach, and helping him get into dark places in his but in a safe way, I should say, so he could really jump into the character. He did that all privately. He kept that to himself, and we kind of worked together on the script separately. And then we would do calls where we would read the script and just go through the character beat by beat until we eventually finally got it. And it was an awesome process, but it was definitely not one that was easy for him. He said it was very emotionally taxing for him, and I can't speak for him, but I don't know how much it affected his personal life, but he said it was very difficult to go in and out of that character.
I can imagine. How long was the shoot?
The shoot lasted for 23 days initially.
Okay.
And
Wow. So almost a month.
Yeah, and then we did 4 days of pickups, but yeah, 23
Oh,
days
wow.
initially. And he plays two characters in the film, and
Yeah.
he goes through the ringer of emotions of being happy dad with the perfect family to depressed, that his son is dead, and
Devastated. Yeah.
devastated, and then he also has to play the fetch, and so it's quite a roller coaster for him. So I don't wish that on anyone, but he pulled it off.
Yeah. So thinking about fear and scares and stuff in a horror movie, and if anyone's listening to this and my voice sounds at all unusual, that's because I have toilet paper shoved up my nose because I have a bloody nose, and I was almost late for the interview because of that. And while I was in the bathroom trying to clean up after myself, I realized, I think there might be more on-screen blood in this interview than in the movie. And so talk a bit about creating fear and scares and stuff in a horror film when you can't turn to gore to support that, because there really isn't. I mean, like, there is death in this movie, but there's no, like, the kid, when you see the kid dead, he's lying on the ground. He's not cut in half or anything like that.
Yeah, so it comes from two different angles. One, the first one is budget. I didn't want to have to worry about all the blood and the special effects, which would take time and money, and so I kind of just wanted to do something simple. As well, I feel that I wanted to make, this sounds really pretentious of me. I wanted to make an elevated horror and something that I felt was not exploitative. And I love slasher films, obviously. I mean, I'm wearing a Halloween shirt right now.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think there's a time and a place for that, absolutely. But to tell this story about trauma and grief I felt gore was just exploitative, and so I really wanted to keep it simple. And I think that there's a lot of horror that just can be squeezed out of, you know, trauma and grief and those moments of loneliness and being in your head. I think those are the scariest things in life, that more people can relate to than, someone coming at you with a machete, right? You can relate to that terrifying loneliness, that fear that you're doing something wrong and that everyone hates you. I that there's just a visceral fear there that you could really tap into, and that's my goal was with the film to do.
Yeah, that's interesting word choice there, visceral, because I mean that comes from like, viscera, guts and stuff. And
Yeah,
to me, uh I wouldn't have picked that word for it because to me the horror in this, I didn't feel it in my gut, I felt it in my brain, if that distinction makes sense. Where
yeah,
it's a very emotional horror. Like I never really had my fight or flight thing triggered. It was more about like anxiety and
yeah.
depression and stuff, as you said. Um, yeah, it's interesting. So the movie is called The Fetch and is about the idea of the Fetch, which is a sort of doppelganger figure from Irish folklore, where the idea is that if you see your Fetch, which is a copy of yourself, that is an omen that you are going to die. And in the movie, it's sort of expanded on in a way that I haven't really typically seen, where the Fetch is like is malevolent and is going to try to kill you rather than simply being a harbinger. Um, Fetches are not a well-known creature compared with like vampires and werewolves and zombies and stuff, especially in America. So, why Fetches? Where did that come from for you?
So yeah, originally in the script it was just the doppelganger, because we had never heard of a fetch, and
Really?
yeah, we had never heard of it until and it wasn't until 2018, 2019 that we changed it from doppelganger to the fetch, because one, we thought it sounded cool, but two, we were talking with a producer from Australia, who named Robbie Miles, who gave us who said, have you guys ever heard of a fetch? And we were like, what is this? It sounds cool. And he told us about it, and turns out, like, a lot of people have heard of it, and we had just never heard of it. And it was just a really cool concept, and originally in I believe in the actual fetch lore, it's normally your significant other or loved one that sees your doppelganger, and so
Oh,
it's an omen of your death. And then, but we wanted to change it up a bit. But and yes, exactly. It's normally just an omen of your death. It's not necessarily malevolent. They'll be in the real folklore, the fetch will just be doing something mundane, like it's just a copy of you. But we wanted it to feel like the fetch was Nicholas's evil twin. We wanted it to feel like it is the part of him that didn't finish the job of killing himself. And so it's kind of here to take its pound of flesh. That's how we
oh,
adjusted it.
okay, okay. Um, yeah. So one aspect uh of that and of the sort of trauma aspect of the film is the generational trauma, where we open with a very creepy scene of that I'm pretty sure I understand, but not absolutely certain, where it's the young Nicholas being assaulted by his grandmother's fetch. Um,
Correct.
and so then this idea that the fetch is in some sense connected to his family, where it's not just a thing that happens to him out of nowhere, it's something that's happened to his his grandmother, and who knows who else in his family. So yeah, when did the idea of like making that a generational thing rather than just the core story come about?
So when putting the script together, I was always trying to figure out the origin of it. I'm trying to, like, where does this come from? Why does this happen? Questions that I ask when I watch movies. And for me, generational trauma felt right because, and ultimately the film is still open to audience interpretation. I don't want to take that away from anyone. But for me, Nick has schizophrenia. And so the fetch isn't technically real until a certain point of the film. But before that, it's schizophrenia. It is his mental projection of himself. He hears thoughts in his head, all the time of what other people are saying. And with his grandmother, she also had schizophrenia. But as a child, like the opening of the film, his point of view is that she is terrifying. She's scary. He doesn't know what she is or what's going on. It's just terrifying, and it gets burned into his brain. Um, but the idea for it being generational just came from a need to explain where it came from without it feeling just cheap and tacked on, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I see what you mean there. Yeah, so you mentioned how it's sort of ambiguous for most of the movie whether the monster is real or not. Uh, did you ever go back and forth on that? Like by the end of the movie, it's pretty unambiguous that the fetch is a real independent creature and it's not just, a symptom of Nicholas's schizophrenia. Did you ever consider making it the other way around, where it unambiguously was part of his mental illness, or maybe make it more ambiguous?
Yeah, so all the way until the last, I would say, 2 or 3 drafts of the script, the fetch was always ambiguous. In fact, in the very end of the original of the script, it was, Dr. Beaumont and Charlie never see the fetch. They only see it, it's only in Nick's head. And there was originally a reveal that it is exactly in Nick's head. They don't actually see it. The reason that changed was because it didn't feel like the stakes were high enough. Because once the audience realizes that it's all in his head, there's no stakes there. You're like, oh well, he's going to be fine. They'll just take him to a hospital. It won't feel like there's any risk here. And so that's why we decided to make it real. What
Okay.
I did then was made sure that whenever we do see the fetch, whenever Dr. Beaumont and Charlie do see the fetch, it's never Nick and the fetch standing side by side. The fetch drops Nick, and it's just the fetch. They don't actually see Nick's face. And then whenever the fetch attacks them, by the time that Nick wakes up, they're passed out, not looking at them. And so then they merge, and then Charlie and Beaumont wake up and see just Nick. So they're never actually seeing them standing side by side.
Yeah, I think
Whether
we as the audience get to see them standing side by side, but the characters don't.
correct.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So are the other characters then necessarily convinced about what happened, or might they still think that it was, Nick just acting crazy?
That's a good question. I mean, the way I look at it is in my personal interpretation of it, it is Dr. Beaumont seeing Nick act out in violence, and it's not necessarily the fetch. It is just Nick, and they're scared of Nick. But ultimately, it is up to interpretation. Most people do see it as 2 separate entities, and I like that. I do like that it's 2 separate entities that, and it gives less. How should I say? I don't want to portray people with mental health challenges as violent, because most people with schizophrenia and mental health challenges are a danger to themselves than they are to others. So I definitely don't want to portray that, which is why it's also a good thing that they are separate. So really, I know I'm rambling here. It comes
Oh no,
down
that's
to
good.
interpretation.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. I'll if I watch it again, I'll have to keep an eye on like the facial reactions of the other characters, see if I can try to figure out what they're thinking.
And I could be crazy. It could be something that no one else notices, and it's in my head. But for me, it's there, and I just hope people enjoy it.
Yeah. So looking through your portfolio on aisle7post.com, you made a bunch of different films, short films, feature films, a documentary. So this was a low budget film, by which I mean less than $1 million, but still more than 100,000, which is the cutoff for where I start calling things micro budget film.
Yeah.
So is this about normal in terms of scale of these features that you've made, or is this larger or smaller than?
So this is my feature film debut as a director. So for that, it's the largest budget I've ever directed for sure, by a long shot. The last film I did before this was in 2018 called War Paint, and the budget for that film was $6,000. So
Oh wow.
yeah. So I took a while to keep working on the script and to finally get it right. We worked on it for 7 years before we actually made the film. But outside of that, the other films I've worked on much higher budget films as an editor, which is what I usually do to pay the bills. But I've done visual effects and editing for since 2018 on a number of films that were around this budget or double.
Okay. So we mentioned before we started recording that you're looking for a distributor for this. Have you gotten other films in distribution before? Tell me a bit about like your goals and your process with that.
So this is an entirely new process for me from this angle. Again, I've worked on films that are on Hulu, that are on major streaming platforms, but all as an editor. So for me, this is a new process, and I'm really excited about it. I'm really anxious about it, but it should be fun. We have a number of leads. I would say that we have a number of prospects based off of festivals that I've been in before as an alumni with my short films. But anything right now, everything is up in the air. So we feel like we'll have a good release strategy, a good release and premiere. But ultimately, at the moment, right now, as we're recording this, we don't know. So it's exciting and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah, and we're recording this in January of 2024. So good luck. You mentioned earlier that you were trying to get it into Tribeca.
Yeah.
Do you know if you've gotten in yet, or?
We won't know at the earliest we'll know would be around March. The notification date's in April, but I've been in Tribeca before with my last film, War Paint, my short film. And so based off of the connections I have there and the how they notified last time, I'm assuming we'll find out around March.
Cool. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah, thank you.
So why are you looking for a traditional distributor? Why not do the sort of distribute it yourself film hub sort of thing?
So I have a number of friends who have done the Film Hub self-distribution method, and depending on your budget, depends on how lucrative that could be for you. I think also a lot of marketing can be expensive, especially if you want to get it out to the world. And we also, our producers have distributed with great distributors before, and so we're trying to go down those avenues because we think that, one, if we don't have to pay for any marketing ourselves, that's great. That's perfect.
Yes, that is a nice thing to do. Marketing, yeah. Marketing sucks.
Yeah, and they'll have those connections with streamers and possibly theatrical venues that we don't have to stress about. So that's the main reason. One, I'd love to have some sort of limited theatrical release if possible. And two, I just don't want to have to pay for marketing. And it just, for me, it feels like it legitimizes me a little more to have a distributor. If I can't, no big deal. I'll one way or another, it's going to get out there. We do have a bit of a marketing budget left over for ourselves. But I'm going to hit the ground running and pull out all the stops while I can and see what sticks, And so I'm going to try to get the big festival premiere. If I can do that, that'll be great. If I can't do that, I'm going to try to get a distributor. If I can't do that, I'm going to start selling DVDs out of the back of my car. People still want those. Whatever it takes, pretty much.
Yeah. So this is your first time directing a feature film. What would you say were like the biggest differences and lessons learned from making this as opposed to making short films?
Yeah, so the biggest differences besides the budget was just having a person for everything on the crew. As a, making short films, you wear a lot of hats, and which I love. I'm very thankful for the process of wearing a lot of hats. It allows me to be more familiar with the process and to understand every crew position, which I think is very integral as a director on a feature is knowing what your crew is doing, why they're doing it, and how difficult their job is. And so I say that's something I'm really thankful for. But just having a large crew of people that are there to take care of everything was very amazing and also weird for me because I felt like I felt bad asking people to do stuff for me. I was like, you don't have to do this. I'm just me. You don't have to do this. But it was very great. I mean, they really took care of me. I had an incredible crew, and I couldn't have asked for a better crew. It went amazingly. Outside of that, you know, treating every film or every scene like it's its own short film
Hmm.
was something that I think really made a difference because whenever you try to do something that's short, it's just one scene. Especially, I mean, I think in my opinion, the best short films are one scene. They're not these grandiose uh, uh, films that are, it's not a feature try to be stuck into a short. And so for feature films, I was really intimidated by the idea of just how am I going to keep a story going this long and then keep it interesting. What am I going to do? Like, how is this going to work? Maybe the script is good, but it's been we've overworked. Maybe we've overworked it. Constantly questioning myself was a big challenge too. But then realizing that, well, if I just treat this scene like it's its own short film, then I think it'll be successful. And that's kind of what I tried to do. And I kept doing that, and I had a great team of people that really pushed me and supported me, and so that was really helpful. Um, Outside of that, I mean, the amount of stuff I've learned about paperwork in films is something I never want to have to do again because like dealing with the unions, and I love unions. They're great, but man, it can be a daunting task on the producing side of things to just like I'm like I just want to make a movie. I don't want to have to deal with all of this stuff. And so you can get away with less permits and all and the paperwork and all these things on a short film, within reason. But on a feature, there's just so many moving parts that. But I loved it. I loved every bit of it. I loved absolutely every bit of it. And I think that it's important that you love it if you're really going to be successful at it.
Yeah, yeah. So this movie, The Fetch, had a really small cast. Like there's one main character, two or three secondary characters, and then like a few tertiary characters. Which I can really only remember like one, but um, and then how big was the crew?
So our crew for this was about 40 people in total.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I mean, we had a lot of locations. We had a lot more than I initially planned it. Originally, the script was just supposed to be in the house the whole time, but then that got boring. And we were like, well, let's add a couple of other locations. And of course, as things go, we kept adding more. But
That's interesting
luckily,
because sorry, I do want to hear the rest of that, but when I think back about it, all the scenes I can remember are either in the opening or in the house. So that's
yeah.
interesting.
When you think of like Nick and Charlie's house, there's Charlie's office, and then there's the pumpkin patch. There's
Mhm.
yeah,
That's right.
but they're little vignette sort of places. Dr. Beaumont's apartment, which is seen. There's a lot that's been cut out. Actually, there's actually two characters that are completely cut out of the film that
Oh,
you didn't see. And I mean, they're still small parts, and I hated having to cut them. But it was better for the story. And then, but Beaumont's apartment, there was a whole scene at Beaumont's apartment, and we spent a whole day there and then we just cut it down to him grabbing his keys and leaving. It's just one shot now. Uh, so yeah, it initially we wanted to keep it self-contained, and I think and I think that's evident that you mostly remember just the house. We did keep it self-contained, while in the grocery store is another location, while still having
Okay.
him in just very small moments outside of the house. I wanted it to not get monotonous. I was worried that people were going to get bored being in the house, thinking that it was very claustrophobic, but not in a good way, because I
Mhm.
wasn't trying to make a claustrophobic film. But I think it worked out.
Yeah, I think it did kind of feel claustrophobic, but I also think that did work for it. That like, um, Nick becomes more and more detached from everyone else around him, and sort of trapped in the house, which is kind of symbolic of his memories, and so it's him
Yes.
getting stuck inside his own head as things go on and his condition worsens. Uh, Yeah, it's interesting. There are two scenes that really stuck with me as being creepy, which are the opening scene with the grandmother's fetch, because it's just no context, creepy old lady chasing a kid. Um, and then the other one that I found deeply uncomfortable was when he sees the neighbor's kid and thinks that it's his kid back from the dead or something,
Yeah.
and just starts behaving in a way that's like completely inappropriate for what's actually going on, but makes sense from his perspective. Um, yeah, so uh, given how deeply personal and psychological this film was, I assume you have another film in mind that you want to make next. Is that going to be similar, or are you going to make just like a guy with a machete runs around, chops people up, or
Oh yeah, no. The next feature that I want to make is a little more mainstream horror for sure. It's definitely it'll have much more gore in it, but I'm hoping that this one will allow me to have a bigger budget on the next one. So that's the plan. Yeah, definitely more uh, less nuance for sure.
Okay, and you're continuing. Your intention is to continue doing completely independent outside of the studio system.
At the moment, yeah. I mean, we have a great system here in Shreveport, where we have an incredible indie film community that I mean, really, the budget that we made this film for would not have been possible had we made it anywhere outside of here. Like just the crew and the resources that we have here is incredible, and I want to keep utilizing that, because I can come in under budget and make something that looks a lot more than its budget for a lot less. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I If you had asked me a few months ago, I would never have named, small town Louisiana as being a hotbed of independent film production, but maybe I should have, because between talking with you and talking with Richard Hansel, founder of 318 Films, yeah, apparently there's a lot of people who are passionate about making this art form there, and because of cost of living and stuff, you can afford to hire more of them.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, you're only as good as your crew, in my opinion, and we just have a great group of people here that just they love it, and we love working on each other's projects, and it's just a good thing to have, and it's rare to find.
All right.
So yeah.
Yeah. So, given that you were able to hire 40 people, that's a pretty sizable crew for a production of this scale. If you had had like another $1 million somehow that you had to spend on the production, what would you have spent it on?
If I would have had another, well, that's a good question. I would have made sure I would have paid people more. I would have paid the crew more. But I would have spent more on visual effects,
Okay.
and I would have spent more on pre-production, because we were very lucky to have extra, or have at least a couple of months of pre-production on this, but because we volunteered time. But being able to pre-produce it and get storyboards, there were a lot of things that I wish I would have been able to do in retrospect, and I feel like having more time and resources to pull that off would have been best. I also would have put more money into the camera equipment, because I love what
Okay.
we shot it on. We shot it on the Alexa Mini on Cook S Primes, and it's beautiful. But there's camera equipment that we couldn't get to get crazy shots that I wanted to get, things like that. So
Okay.
it's all little stuff, nothing major, but yeah.
What kind of crazy shots would you have wanted to include?
I love tracking shots in horror movies that track the character, like moving left to right or upside down, cameras twisting and things like that, that I couldn't really pull off with the equipment and the budget and the time that we had. Specialty shots like aerial shots above above the house, like that aren't just drone shots, would be great. Things like that. Just really cool angles that you can't get without, again, specialty equipment.
Okay.
uh, and as well, also, the film has our main character, Nick, plays his own doppelganger, and he's only one guy, he's not a twin.
Right.
So I would have loved to have been able to get a like a mechanical dolly that would have allowed me to get more than just static shots from the static
Uh,
wides.
do
Something.
a motion controlled shot so that you could.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think how you would get a shot from above looking down at a house without using a drone. And it's either a helicopter or like a giant crane.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, if you
so
think, like, have you seen *Malignant*?
I haven't actually. I'm not the
Yeah.
biggest James Wan fan, but I have
Well,
heard that *Malignant* is good.
I did. It actually was not my cup of tea. But there was an incredible shot in the film where they kind of have the camera going around the house, and it's above the house, looking at it like it's a mousetrap, and it's
Oh,
an
okay.
incredible shot. And I would have loved to have been able to do things like that. But that's because
Okay.
they built that house on a set, and I would have loved to have been able to do that. That would have been
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Tear
With
down
that,
walls and all that.
you could have like a spider cam running on cables above it if you're able to build it on a set.
Yeah.
That would cost a lot of money.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
um, it's interesting you mentioned wanting to spend more money on visual effects, because I thought that the visual effects, there weren't a lot of them in the movie, but the ones that were there were effectively done. And I think that's, if you have a limited budget, that's a good way of doing it. And indeed, I think that can often make a movie stronger, because um, it's like what happened with Jaws, where the initial idea was like all shark all the time. Check out this amazing robot shark we built, and then it keeps breaking down. They're like, okay, we'll show brief glimpses of the shark, and that made it much more effective. And in this, we do see full-on shots of the fetch of the two different fetches, but it's not all the time in your face or anything like that. And most of the creepiest, I think I must have blinked the first time that I watched it, because I rewatched it a few days ago, and there's a very creepy shot that I didn't remember from the first one, of like just his finger being in fetch mode, which I assume was done with just like makeup. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So basically, we had our lead actor sitting there. It's just his knee, and then we switched him out with a hand double who already had his finger kind of made up into the fetch finger, and then we just placed it there, locked the camera, and then comped the shots together. So yeah, that was all done in camera.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. Obviously I'm coming at this from a different perspective than you are, but I'm honestly not sure what visual effects would have improved it. Like, except maybe what you were saying about, like, using a motion control rig to have both of the characters running around in a moving shot at the same time. That would have been cool. But that's a camera thing, not a visual effects thing. Like, you could still have just him in makeup as the fetch version.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, no, I appreciate that. That is music to my ears, because it's something that I stressed over countless hours on with the visual effects. Because I think there's 380 visual effect shots in the film,
oh wow.
and most of them, I would say, just to clarify, most of them are painting out wires, painting out just
Oh,
little
okay.
things here and there. But the big visual effect shot is the one at the end, the big merging shot, which
Yeah.
is something that I had big grandiose plans for, and of course, at the end of the day, our budget kind of restricted it. But I that means a lot to me that you didn't think it needed it. That was awesome. And then the paint on the wall. was something that I really wanted to be much bigger than it is in the film. Whenever Charlie and Beaumont, they come into the house and they see all the paint on the wall that
Hmm.
Nick has put.
Yeah.
I wanted that to be bigger than it is, but so it's something that in my head is never quite as perfect as I want it to be. So maybe a lot of that VFX budget is just me being a director about things, thinking, oh, I would have done this more. But I do think you're right. Less is more. I mean, Jaws is perfect because of how little you see the shark. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, good. Um, so you mentioned painting out wires. Could you give some examples of shots where you had to do that?
Yeah, pretty much every shot where he's hanging, we had him up on a rig, and then
Okay.
yeah, and then there's also like there's shots where we have camera equipment in shots, little things. It's all little
Okay.
subtle things
Okay.
here and there. Also, there's so many shots of the Fetch's eyes that needed to be painted out. That is just more than I anticipated because these contacts look great, and then in 4K they're very obviously contacts. So
Yes, um I am unusual among my cinephile friends in that I I'm not into the ultra high resolution thing. Like, I don't own a 4K display, and
yeah.
when I'm watching movies, I mean, honestly, usually when I'm watching movies, I'm streaming them because it's just by far the most convenient thing. But like the
Yeah.
physical media that I own is on VHS, which is
Oh yeah.
absolutely not 4K, and so
I love that, man. The VHS feel is perfect. I'm right there with you.
yeah, there's something about the having the physical object that is the medium that stores the work of art matter to your experience of viewing it. Something about that is
Yes.
just incredibly charming to me.
No, I agree. Yeah.
You've got that one, that other more mainstream, as you described it, horror film that you're planning on making. I notice you very deliberately seeming didn't give any sort of details about that, really.
Yeah.
Um, do you have any other upcoming projects that you would like to talk in more detail about?
No, I mean, I'm just right now I'm trying to sell the Fetch and then work on this other one. So
Yeah,
that's pretty
absolutely,
much, yeah.
absolutely fair. Um, all right. So, how long have you been in Shreveport?
I've been in Shreveport since 2015. I'm originally from
Okay.
Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, so that's still the South, but
Yes, yeah, it's kind of the
not the
same.
same
Yeah,
community.
yeah, just a little
Um,
more human over here.
oh my goodness, yeah. Uh, um, yeah. So, talk a bit about the independent filmmaking scene down there.
Yeah, so I originally moved to Shreveport because of this thing called the Louisiana Film Prize, which is a short film competition. It's an annual short film competition here in Northwest Louisiana that awards a $50,000 cash prize to a short film every year, which is like the largest cash prize for a short film in the world. And it's really a hidden gem here. More people should be involved in it, and it's growing every year. But we kept coming back to make films for it. We trying to get a piece of that pie. We kept coming back, and we kept never winning. But we eventually, me and my filmmaking partners, realized that we wanted to just keep making movies here because one, it was cheaper, and two, Atlanta at the time was already growing so fast in with like Marvel and Pinewood in general studios that like it was getting so expensive to film there. So well, Shreveport had everything we needed. It had a local crew. It wasn't expensive. You could film pretty much anywhere on city property for free. It was just great, and so we decided to move here. And as soon as we moved here, the film industry died in
Oh
Shreveport.
no.
It went away, but we kept it here as a community. And honestly, people say I'm crazy for leaving Atlanta, and I totally get that. But if I wanted to work crew, I would have stayed in Atlanta. But being that I wanted to make my own films, I'm really glad I stayed here because I got to make the Fetch here. And it's just, you know, making independent films is obviously I can't say that I would put down or reject an offer to direct a studio film. I've never had that kind of money offered to me. That said, just the freedom and the respect that the independent film community gives to people is something that I don't ever want to lose. I don't want to lose that freedom, and I don't want to lose being connected with my crew. And I think that's just something that you can't find in the Hollywood system. And I've worked on big budget Hollywood films, and I've been treated like I didn't matter, and I don't like that. And and I want to know every crew member's name if I can. I want to know that. I want to know what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how hard it is for them to do it, so I can respect that work. And I think it just makes for a better experience, and it makes your crew happier. And I make movies because I love it, not because I want to get paid. And that's just icing on the cake if it happens. So
yeah, that is a pretty big factor there. I've talked with a fair number of independent filmmakers at this point, and it is uncommon for independent films to break even.
yes.
Even when they're micro budget, yeah, even when they get picked up for distribution, ugh.
Yeah, it's especially now, it's getting harder and harder to make, money off of films because there's too many fish in the sea. There's an overload of content, which is a good thing. It's a double-edged sword, right? It's great that there's more options, but there's also less ways to make money because you have to compete with a sea of content.
Yeah, that's that's something that I've been thinking about for a while now. I've read a lot of filmmakers' autobiographies, and I've spoken with mostly, younger, more modern filmmakers, but also several ones who've been doing things for a long time, like Graydon Clark and Lloyd Kaufman. And it really seems to be that it used to be back in the 50s through 70s, and then starting to change in the 80s, that it was hard to make a movie, but if you made a movie, the odds were pretty good you would make money off of the movie. And nowadays, it's easy to make a movie, relatively speaking, but the odds that you will make money off of the movie are very low, which is an interesting trade-off. I can totally understand how, for people who want to make this their full-time job, that can be really frustrating. But speaking as someone who cares more about getting to see everybody's weird artistic visions, I really like the current era. So
Yeah, that's why I say it's a double-edged sword, because you get so many great things. More people have access to cameras and equipment and the ability to release their content. And it's amazing. The amazingly creative things that we see because of that is just, I'm very thankful for that. But then, yeah, I want to keep doing this, and I got to pay my bills. Like, what do I do? And so it's a weird space we're in. I do see things changing. I do see that, as streamers, begin to expand, and that streaming bubble has kind of burst now. I think, Netflix is still kind of on top, but there's also, major streamers that are kind of finding their own footing. I think that there's going to be more opportunity in the world of streaming for independent content. I don't say lucrative, but a little bit more manageable when it comes to making money. But I think it's just the way that the environment is changing for people to be able to access films, and it is. I think it's growing in a positive direction. So I don't think it's going to be forever that we're going to be making less and less money on independent films. But I can't say exactly where it is going to go. It's something it's exciting and terrifying, and it makes me scared, but also I do believe that there is a future for independent films.
Yeah. So that's
I said a bunch of nothing right there.
Oh, no, I think that's interesting, and it ties in. Like, usually the last question that I ask people when I'm interviewing them here is, where do you see the future of independent film going? And you just addressed the sort of the money making direction of that. What do you see, like, artistically? What are you expecting? What are you hoping for?
So I know there's a lot of talk online, obviously, in around the world about AI. and it's not something that I fear, because I think I don't really care for AI, but I've tried to understand it enough to see if it's going to take my job. But I don't think that it's going to be as big of a threat as people think. That said, the reason I'm saying that is that I think that independent film's only going to get more accessible and more entertaining as we go forward. Because right now, people are wanting to go to the theater. People are showing studios that they want to go to the movies. People are going back to the movies, and that's really exciting. And I think that independent cinema is what's going to independent theaters. Independent films playing in theaters, I feel and I hope is going to make a big comeback, because you have the Barbies and the Oppenheimers, which did great, but I think people, especially in 2023, really proved to studios that they want good films in theaters, not just big Marvel movies. And while there's a time and place for that, I think audiences are getting smarter and they want more things that are going to make them feel something, that they're going to be able to connect to, whether or not it's just a dumb, fun popcorn flick, or whether or not it's a slow burn think piece. And so I feel that independent films are going to be the answer to that, and I think that they are going to continue to become more popular as time goes on. Because again, right now people are tired of Marvel films; they're tired of these big tentpole films. Enough to say that we want something more, and I think independent films are the answer to that.
Yeah, I was very happy seeing the relatively mainstream financial success of Terrifier 2 and Godzilla Minus One as being two, like, Godzilla Minus One isn't really an independent film. It's made by a mainstream Japanese film production company, but it's a foreign film, not released in English, and it's doing so well that they're going to release it again in black and white.
I know.
And so,
and I mean, $15 million for that film is, I mean, it was incredible. Like, the fact they were able to pull that off and then just show all these major studios that just blow so much money, really show like knock them out of the water.
Also, that number isn't accurate. The director of the film has been interviewed and asked about that $15 million number, and his response was, "I don't know where that number came from. I wish we had $15 million."
Oh, wow. That's even more impressive.
Yeah. So my guess is that the budget was between 5 and 10 million.
Wow.
But yeah, it's absolutely incredible. But again, they making excellent use of that sort of Jaws principle of, like, Godzilla isn't actually on screen for a significant portion of the movie. It's about the effect that Godzilla has on the world and the characters.
Yes.
And so you don't need, a team of 700 visual effects artists to do that.
And that is a movie about trauma. It's about the trauma of war and the trauma and the aftermath.
Oh, yeah, of course, absolutely.
And it's just such a powerful film. I'm glad you brought that one up. I loved it. It was one of my favorite of 2023.
Yeah. I live in a mid-sized town in Colorado, and we have one ordinary movie theater and we have a drive-in. The drive-in's only open during the summer when it's warm enough to be outside at night. And so I go to the drive-in all the time when it's open, but unfortunately Godzilla Minus One was released in the late fall. And so that's the only movie that I've seen in a hardtop movie theater, I think, in the last 2 years.
Oh, wow. Oh, man.
other than that, it's streaming or it's the drive-in.
Gotcha.
And as someone who mostly watches independent films, even if I wanted to go see them in the in the hardtop movie theater, I wouldn't have the option to.
Dang, yeah. Well, we're a little more spoiled here. We have a small independent cinema here, the Robinson Film Center, that gets a lot of independent films, and so I'm sorry you don't have that there.
Oh, yeah. Well, we do have we have a number of venues that aren't dedicated film things, but they do show movies. So if you count those, then I've been to more. But
gotcha.
Those aren't normal movie
for
theaters
sure,
with 100 or more seats in them and stuff like that. So thank you for coming on and talking about this. This has been great fun, for me at least.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Excellent. So your website is aisle7post.com. That's AISLE, the number 7, POST.com. Is there anywhere else you would like to direct anyone who's listening to this?
No, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I have an Instagram, JC Doler, but I don't post there very often. So, yeah, that's it.
Excellent. Well, thank you for coming on. I can't wait to find out what this more mainstream horror that you're working on is.
Very soon, very soon. Thank you so much, Thomas. I really appreciate it.